Hi everyone, it's Tasha. Welcome back to my channel. I've rounded up some of my favorite easy DIY dupes of items from high-end stores like Makeovers, Pottery Barn, West Elm, and Our House. I've hit the thrift stores and now I'm creating my own budget versions of these inspiration pieces that I'm sure that you can do too. Come on and join me for this DIY challenge. First up on my list of inspo from Makeovers is this wrapped lidded container. It's like a little canister, it has this cute little lid, and it seems to be wrapped in some sort of cotton string. I knew I wanted to try to recreate this, especially since the original is $108 just for the small size. My husband actually found this canister for me at my request while he was thrift shopping, so thank you to him. It was $2.50. So I already had this large ball of cotton string on hand from a yard sale a while back for 50 cents, so I have plenty of it. So I'm just wrapping it around the canister here and using hot glue to secure it. You actually don't need as much hot glue as I'm shown doing right here. It's actually easier just to wrap the string and let it stay on its own without all that glue. It ends up looking neater in the end. I'm rubbing some Mod Podge on the lid to make it easier to place the strings that go around the lid without them slipping. And then I have this little wooden craft spear from my drawer that I just put a little bit of walnut stain on from Minwax, and this is the final result. I think that this is a pretty close approximation for only $2.50. Next up, I was inspired by these handcrafted linen books. These are $36 for the small version, and while these have handcrafted paper and everything, I want to try and wrap my own books in linen. I have on hand lots more of this fabric that I used in my last video to make these fringed placemats. So I got this from the Goodwill bin. These are curtain panels originally, and I'm just using it here to wrap this coffee table book that has a white cover that's actually stained anyway. So I've just gone around the edges just like I did with the box with some hot glue, pressed really carefully around all of the edges on the front and the back, and I've gone ahead and done 2 of these, and now I have this set of matching wrapped linen books. I think these are really sweet, and honestly I'm tempted to do more. This next piece at Our House really caught my eye. This is called the branching candle holder. It's $179 and it's made of aluminum, but you can see it's these 3 intertwined branches that they have holding up votives. My first thought was that I could try and make something like this out of real branches. Okay, so I am out here in the woods looking for sticks. Should be able to find sticks. Okay, never mind. These sticks don't work. I'm going back. Now I'm up early in the morning before anyone else, and I'm just trying to glue these branches together in a way that makes sense. So I've started with just 2, and what I did was I first used some hot glue just to immediately bond them together so that I could work with them, and then I went around that with a lot of E6000 glue, which is much stronger, that's going to hold them together firmly so that it's safe to burn tea lights on them. I've taken a twist tie as well as some cotton cord to really hold these tightly in place while the E6000 sets. And for the tea light holders, I went to the Dollar Tree and found these 4 packs of these little metal canisters, and I'm just going to be using the lids off of these upside down to hold my tea lights. I have several canisters of black spray paint that I need to finish up, so I'm just finishing those up first, and then I'm going over that with a layer of that black hammered metal spray paint. I'll link it in the description box if you want to see, but this is going to be the background color for my branches. Now I've glued on those canister lids as my tea light holders, and I'm going to take this back outside and give it another coat of the black hammered metal spray paint, and I want the candle holders to match the rest of the branches as well. And this is my last step. I'm taking some rub and buff in the color European Gold, and I'm just lightly with a gloved finger going over and rubbing slightly. This actually works really well on real wood because the texture in it makes the gold show really nicely. I think that once this rub and buff is placed all over top of this black, it really does make it look like metal as much as humanly possible without it being metal. So this is the final reveal. I was very happy with the way this project turned out, especially considering I could find the branches in my own backyard, but I will say, as a word of warning, it was a lot harder than I imagined to find 3 branches that worked in the right shape that I was looking for. I thought it would be easy and I would go out and find them in 10 minutes. It actually took me about an hour to find branches that had the right shape that I needed. But otherwise, it was a very easy project and didn't cost a lot at all. While the one at our house was $179, and admittedly it was cast in aluminum, so it's a different object. Since I got the branches for free and already had the tea lights and the paint, the only thing that I actually needed to purchase were those little canisters. I had to get 2 packs in order to get the 5 that I needed, and so my grand total for this project was only $2. So next up, I want to try and make a DIY tree that is similar to this faux minimalist citrus tree from West Elm. Now the 7-foot one that they have there is $399 plus the shipping plus a $10 delivery surcharge, so I definitely want to try and DIY my own. I found these similar stems on Amazon. Now these came in packs of 4 and I bought 2 packs. I looked down in the section where you can buy from the Amazon return warehouse and the price is reduced, so I only paid about $15 per bundle of 4, spending around $30 for all the stems that I needed for this tree. My plan is to find a real large tree branch outside and then use these stems on it to make the branches for my tree. They arrive, and I do like the way that they look. They mimic the West Elm tree pretty well. However, a quick note, I did find different stems after doing this project that are a more muted shade of green that I love even more, so I'm going to link those in the box too, and you can see them featured in this video. Now I'm just going to lace up and head outside to try and find a branch that can work for the base of my tree, and I'm looking at my inspiration photo as I go to try and find the right shape. So I cut this pretty largish piece off the very top of the tree. It kind of like jutted at a completely wrong angle from the top, so I know I wasn't going to use that one. But I'm going to save it because it obviously matches, you know, it's part of the same tree, and I'm thinking it's possible that I'll want to attach something here. So I'm just going to hang on to it and not toss it yet in case I want to alter the shape of the tree a little bit. And now I'm just trimming off all of the smaller pieces of this branch that I know for sure I won't be needing before I bring it inside. Here it is in the house. It definitely still has way too many little pieces on it, but I'm just going to start placing my faux stems and then snipping off all the excess pieces as I go along in one process. And how I'm going about it is I'm getting rid of some of the rubbery part around the ends of the tips of the stems, and I'm exposing some of the wire inside them, and then I'm figuring out exactly where I want that piece to go and drilling a hole straight into the branch for that piece to go in, making a space to insert the wire. I'm putting a little bit of hot glue on each piece of wire before I press it in just to make sure that it's all nice and snug, and then also I'm putting some more hot glue right around the base of where the stem meets the real branch. I'm kind of mixing and matching as I go, taking the branches that I bought apart and using some of the small pieces, but a couple of them I did insert whole. You can see here more of a close-up of how I'm inserting each one. Now, if you don't have a pair of wire cutters and you don't do this sort of thing a lot, if you have a pair of needle nose pliers, they usually have a built-in wire cutter right here. See this little blade right here? And so you can usually, if you can have that in your toolbox, it really does a good job of clipping right through wire as well. Now once the tree was completed, I just got a little bit of concrete mixture, which is pretty cheap for a bag full, and we propped it up with some bricks, stuck the base in this little extra pot, and that was the pot for our tree. And to style it, I used this larger black flower pot that I had on hand. I put an empty paint can that we were done with on the bottom just to raise it up higher, and then sat that tree right on the top. Then I cut out a circle out of cardboard, just kind of very roughly cut a hole in the middle and a slit so that I could wrap it around the top of that and put my faux moss on the top. That way you're not having to fill the whole pot with moss or grass or anything. I'm really happy with how this tree turned out. I think it's really sweet, and I think it's a pretty good dupe for that West Elm tree. And mine cost me only $30 plus some of my time, of course. So I am sure that by now you have probably seen these antique style skinny benches everywhere, from Studio McGee to Pottery Barn to Amber Lewis's shop. You can see lots of them on Etsy, and you can kind of see here that they run pretty high in a couple of hundreds of dollars for these handmade skinny benches that people are selling. But I also saw all over Pinterest how you can also DIY these yourself, so I'm diving into that today. The first thing I need to do, since we don't have a whole lot of spare lumber already at our house, is make a trip to Lowe's. So for this bench I used one 2x6 and one 2x2, and that cost me less than $10, as you can see. So with the 2x6, that was just my seat. I had them cut it for me at 5 feet. It was easier to transport home that way. And then I used the 2x2 for all the legs and the little cross pieces. So there's 4 legs, each one at 18 inches, and 2 cross pieces at 6 inches. All the angles are 15 degrees. And I like to remember this because all the legs, the angles all looked like windshield wipers facing the same direction, and all for the cross pieces, the angles were like yay arms going outward, if that helps you to remember. So I don't have a fancy miter saw or anything to cut the angle perfectly for me, but I'm just using a protractor. I bought this one on Amazon, but you may have a protractor already at home. Just anything to help you find a 15-degree angle. With this kind, you just line it up on the 15-degree mark, and the resulting inside piece there is your 15-degree angle. So you can trace this directly onto the wood that you're going to be cutting, or what I decided to do was take some cardstock and make myself just a little quick template, because I felt like it was easier to trace a sharp point onto the wood when I use the cardboard template instead of trying to trace inside the actual protractor. So you can do it either way. Just get a 15-degree angle on each leg, as the diagram showed earlier, and make one cut each to create your legs. Here my husband is doing the cuts for me while I'm filming, but it only takes him maybe 1 minute to make all the cuts. And so these are all of the pieces finished and ready to put together. You can see the 4 legs and the 2 cross pieces that are 6 inches each, and then the bench itself. So I'm just pre-drilling every hole and then putting my screw in. I think it's important to pre-drill on these because your wood can split kind of easily if you're just trying to drive the screws straight in. So I didn't do any fancy pocket holes or anything like that like some of the other DIYs. I just screwed at an angle directly from the leg into the seat, and that's because this is going to be a largely decorative piece for me. I'm not going to be standing on this, or it's not going to have to support any huge weight, so this is perfectly fine. It's pretty stable like it is this way. So as you can see, I'm putting it about 4 inches in from the edge of each seat. You can adjust that to your liking, but that's just what I chose to do. And you could see that I used my little cross piece to kind of just hold up there and make sure that I had them in exactly the right spot where the cross piece would fit between each. It was pretty simple, and I think once you get started with this, it's a very beginner friendly project. So the most important thing I'm saying again is just that you should pre-drill a hole for each screw before you put it in. That definitely made it a lot easier. And I'm just putting as many screws in each leg as I feel like I need for it to feel stable, and it's not jiggling around anymore. It feels nice and steady. On all of these legs, I think I ended up doing 3 screws each, just kind of on the inside pieces and not on the very outside. Now at this stage, I don't have my cross pieces attached yet, but I went ahead and got started on the fun part. I also purchased this wire brush set for a drill, and you can use just a hand wire brush for this, but this does make it so much faster. I'm using a drill with it and just kind of more effect quicker than doing it by hand, but you don't have to have this. But this was just a really fun tool to use. I like the way you kind of just hold it still and it really drags through the wood and makes these kind of deep marks that end up looking really pretty on the final piece. I also just used my hammer that I had on hand. I used the front side. I also turned it around and used the claw side, as you can see me kind of like chipping away at the edges there and also dragging it to make like some deep cuts throughout the wood. So just whatever you have on hand, you just want to really beat up this wood, and I would say when you think you've antiqued it enough, do like double or triple that amount, because you really need a lot of antiquing for it to make a big effect once you're done. I went over this lots of times with this wire brush and really held it, like I said, in one spot for a while and made sure the gouges were getting nice and deep. Went all over the sides, the legs, and I really enjoyed also doing the kind of deep scratches with the hammer claw. So here's how it's starting to look when I'm almost done antiquing. You can see the different marks that I made, and there's really no right or wrong here. You just want to really beat it up. And then the next day, since I was renewed energy, I actually went back and did some more. So you can see here I'm kind of chipping away at the edges to kind of round them out some more. I'm just using a paint scraper there actually, because I don't have a chisel set, but I will link to one on Amazon if you would like to get a chisel set. They're not very expensive either. I went back and did more with my wire brush. I just kept going back and forth until I was happy with the final result. And then once you're done with all of your antiquing and you feel comfortable with that, you want to sand the whole thing. You can do it by hand. I'm using an orbital sander since we already have one, but you just want to go back over it and make everything nice and smooth. So I am finished up with this after I've gone back and added even more distressing. I think I'm good with it now. I love the deep lines that wire brush on the drill made. I've added some more deep cuts. I've chipped away at the edges so that it's more rounded and not so rectangular, and I'm pretty happy with it now. So now it's time to stain it or color it, whatever I'm going to do. So I was planning on using Special Walnut liquid stain, and I can't find it anywhere, so I don't know what happened, but these are the options that I do have. So I'm going to try and just work with one of these. On a small little stool that I antiqued a while back, I just covered it with this dark vintage antiquing wax. Just that right on top of it. But I also have this slate colored gel stain. I have this briar smoke colored gel stain. And then I have this finishing wax in white that I could go over something with. So I'm just going to play around on a test piece of wood and see what combination I want to do. So I decided to go ahead and use this antiquing wax on this stool. This is the color Dark Vintage. And honestly, I probably would have preferred a liquid stain just to be able to get in the crevices better. But you can still do it with this antiquing wax, and I do think that this is a really, really nice color. So I just need to finish this up. I'm just applying it with a rag. Then I might do a dirt rub on this, but let me just keep going and see how this looks. So I just continue rubbing this in with the rag. It's not very difficult, although it takes a little bit of time to get it all over every nook and cranny. And this does dry to the touch. It's not sticky or anything like that. It actually dries pretty quickly, and it's a nice product to use. Then I go ahead and do a dirt rub on it just for fun, kind of to see what difference it makes. It does kind of mattify the top, which I liked, and it adds a little touch of grayness. So you might choose to do that, or you might not. If you do, you can always give it a coat of sealing with maybe polyacrylic or some other clear coat that you have on hand. And this was really just as easy as that, and this is how it looks. I'm putting this at the foot of our king size bed in our master bedroom, so you can see how the 5-foot length of that works against a king size bed if you're considering this. I think that it's the perfect size, leaving a little space on either side. And I love how this looks by itself. I think that that's a great look, but I'm just going ahead and playing with it a little more. I'm just styling it on this side with this blanket that's from Pottery Barn, but I picked it up at Goodwill for $1.99, as well as a thrifted basket on the other end. And then just for another little touch, I'm putting this little 2-handled pot, also from Goodwill, for $1.99 with some faux thyme that came from Pottery Barn initially, but also again from Goodwill, in that on the other side. And I think for me, this completes the look. And so this is my DIY skinny bench, you guys. I'm really proud of having made this myself as a beginner who hasn't done much with wood before. This was just my speed. So if that's you, I think that you can do this too. So I was just really happy with how this turned out. I'm glad that I went with the dark antique wax rather than some that were a little bit lighter like I was seeing, just because I think this makes more of a statement and a focal point here when you first walk in the room, to have this higher contrast against the bedding and the walls and such, and also ties in a little bit more with the darker bamboo shades that I have on the windows. So I'm just so happy that I went ahead and tried this. I think this was just my speed, so if that's you, this might be the right speed for you to try too. I didn't have any really fancy tools or anything, just a saw and a drill. And so I'm hoping that maybe some of you out there will want to try to make your own as well. So go back and screenshot the earlier screens with the sizes and the pieces needed if you want to make this exact bench, but you can also make this in any size, like maybe a smaller size to be used as a plant stand in another room, or a small bench to go beside like a chair or a sofa. That would also be really cute. So many possibilities with these little skinny benches, and they make such a pop and such a statement. Next, I brought home this set of 3 picture frames. Now I'm just using these for the frames. There is some artwork framed inside, and it has this red matting all along. So I'm not going to use these as is, but what caught my eye was the fact that there were 3 of them that matched, first of all, and also that they had a nice thin modern style wooden frame. And so I'm just disassembling these here to see what's what inside. And actually what someone had framed were calendar pages, which was creative. So, but I'm going to be removing that, and I thought about maybe wrapping the matting here in a fabric to cover up the red. And you can see how I do that in another video. This is a little clip of how I do that. You can go to the video linked above and see how you can do that really precisely. It makes a nice result with a linen wrapped frame. However, I think I'm going to go a different direction with this particular project. I'm just taking these all the way apart so that I just have the frames, and I can paint those to cover up some of the rough spots. The frames were pretty dinged up on these, so I think I need to paint them. I'm just taking out all of those staples in the back side of this and taking them all apart so that I can get started. And now I have 3 frames. I'm going to be giving these a couple of coats of this ultra matte black spray paint. I'm going for a very modern look with these, and I want to stack them with black and white photographs inside. So this paint, you can still see a little bit of damage in the wood, but does a pretty good job of camouflaging all that in a way that kind of refinishing the wood would not have. While I'm outside, I paused to plant a few things in our garden, and now I'm off to Dollar General, which is right down the street, and I'm just going to pick up 3 sheets of poster board. So I decided that I definitely wanted like an oversized matting for this, and I picked up that white poster board, and that's what I'm going to use to create my matting. So I've just traced a slightly smaller than 4x6 rectangle using a photo that I already owned. I made it a little bit smaller. I want my opening to be smaller than the actual photograph size, and I'm just tracing that onto the piece of poster board. I'm tracing on the glossy side because I want to use the matte side facing out as my picture frame matting, and then I'm just using my X-Acto knife, which I will link below. This is super helpful to carefully cut this out, and I'm being as precise as I possibly can because I want this to be a nice crisp edge that's going to be framing my photo. So I'm doing kind of the best job that I can, tracing that and cutting it out perfectly. And then I'm just using the existing piece of matting that came with it to kind of put it evenly around that one, and then I'm cutting that out after I trace that as well. So you can see the end result is an oversized white mat with a spot inside for a 4x6 photograph. Now I'm going to be hanging these at the top of my hallway in a vertical stack like the photo shown here. This is my inspiration photo, and you can see how much they cost at Target. They're about $40 each for this same exact size with the 4x6 matting cut out in the middle. So I thought that for $7.99 for all 3 of these was an excellent deal. Just a little bit of paint and a little bit of time to cut out my own matting, and I have my own version of that. You can see it here at the top of our hallway, what I've done. It's kind of hard to get the footage just at the right angle because there's not a lot of space for me to move back, but you can kind of see what they look like here. And I've taken a couple photographs too for reference. I think that I really like this stack here at the top of the hallway. It just has a lot of impact with the all black and white and a very modern touch here in the hallway. If you enjoyed this video, then please hit like, leave me a comment, and go ahead and hit subscribe so you'll see more of them in your feed. And I will see you at the next video.